What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. Did you know that there are more than 140 craftable legendary and exotic weapons in Destiny 2? It's kind of crazy when you think about it, especially because we'll be getting more when the final shape releases. Even with such a large amount of weapons to craft, not all of these would be considered top tier, and there's several that can't even be acquired by newer and returning players. With the release of Into the Light, Bungie has made it easier than ever to obtain and craft several seasonal and raid weapons, giving everyone, even free players, a chance to be better prepared for when we face up against the Witness. Which brings us to the most important question: which of these craftable weapons should you be investing your time into? With that in mind, I've put together the best craftable legendary weapons that you should be obtaining now before the final shape releases. We'll be checking out several primary, special, and heavy legendary weapons, how you can obtain them, and we'll cover a few different god roll options that you'll want to consider using when crafting your own versions. And to start us off, we're going to be looking at the top 5 primary weapons, and we start with the Amit Solar Auto Rifle. It's a free and easy to acquire weapon pattern that's obtained by completing the introductory quest when first visiting the Enclave. This is a 450 RPM precision framed auto rifle, so it naturally has good range and accuracy, and it offers several great weapon trait combinations that's going to allow this weapon to excel both in the Crucible and in PvE. In the third column, I would recommend running either triple tap, since it's going to return ammo directly into the magazine after landing 3 precision shots. Turnabout can also offer some really interesting benefits, since it provides a 10-point overshield after breaking solar shields. But in the end, I find triple tap to be a much more beneficial trait, and it's going to pair up nicely with our fourth column choices, which is One for All or Incandescent. Incandescent is a very hot option right now because of how it pairs up with the seasonal artifact mod. But ultimately, I find One for All to be a more reliable trait that gives us a 35% bonus in damage after hitting 3 different enemies. Either way you go, the Amit is a great auto rifle to have going into the final shape. The next primary weapon that we'll check out is another auto rifle, the Rufus's Fury, a rapid-fire strand auto rifle that's available through Root of Nightmare and Pantheon. Even though it's a 720 RPM auto rifle, it's remarkably accurate with surprisingly good range. This is a very nice option for PvE because of its extremely versatile trait combinations and its synergy with strand subclasses. You have options like Demolitionist, Thresh, or Pugilist, which are going to help regain abilities faster. Or you can go for Maximum Destruction with Rewind rounds or Reconstruction. Even though it was nerfed, Target Lock still remains a great damage perk, but there's also options like Hatchling, which will generate Threadlings, synergizing really nicely with any strand build. Another reason this auto rifle will be beneficial is its origin trait, which increases its damage when using other Root of Nightmare weapons, and it also deals bonus damage against Tormentors. The next primary that we'll look at is the BXR, a solar pulse rifle available through the Dares of Eternity, a Halo-inspired weapon that was amazing when it was first released, and it's gotten even better now that it has a craftable option. This is the only legacy-framed pulse rifle. It's fast, it's accurate, and it's as responsive as the Meta multi-tool. The BXR comes with a unique weapon trait called Blunt Executioner, and I am such a big fan of this because it grants this weapon a 500% increase in damage after striking enemies with a melee. I love using this with a Solar or Strand Syntho Titan build, since those builds revolve heavily around their melee use. To work off of Blunt Executioner, you can have Pugilist in the third column, so that the BXR will recharge your melee energy. The BXR also offers Incandescent in the fourth column, which has been more appealing this season, but in the end, you cannot beat out the Blunt Execution. Pulse rifles will be getting a damage bonus and the option of anti-barrier rounds when final shape releases, which will definitely make the BXR an even more valuable prospect. Up next, we're looking at the Zeoli's Bane, a solar hand cannon. what you might also know as the legendary version of the Sunshot. This is normally available through the King's Fall raid, but it can also be obtained through the Pantheon. It's a 140 RPM adaptive framed hand cannon. It's got amazing base stats in impact and accuracy, and it's got one of the most amazing lineups of weapon traits. In the third column, you could add in Gut Shot Straight, giving you a second damage bonus, but this is something more suited for the Crucible. So in PvE, I would recommend Explosive Payload, because it's going to pair up beautifully with Incandescent, Firefly, or One for All. Zeoli's Bane comes with one of the most impressive origin traits when it comes to team activities, since you're going to be able to overflow the magazine after reloading, based on how many allies are nearby, allowing you to have as many as 15 rounds in the magazine, if not more. This is a nail driver, and it's going to be a powerful weapon to take into the final shape. The last primary that we'll look at is another auto rifle, but it's one that I'm sure that you were not expecting to see, and that's the Come to Pass, an arc auto rifle that can be obtained through the Wellspring activities. It's not the flashiest of weapons, but it gets the job done, performing in many ways like the Amit does, and it has an equally amazing lineup of weapon traits that will fit into almost any build. Triple Tap in the third column is going to keep your magazine filled, while you rack up a ton of bonus damage with either One for All, Golden Tricorn, or Dragonfly. It makes for one hell of an ad clear weapon, and since it's a 360 RPM auto rifle, it's got a ton of impact to mow those enemies down fast. The Come to Pass also includes another top tier origin trait called Psycho Hack, which reduces your enemy's damage output by 10% after dealing sustained damage. It's not as much as a severing effect would be, but it would stack, and it will still help you stay alive. And now, let's talk about those special weapons. We've got the Swordbreaker, one of my personal favorites. I love using this one on a strained build, or any build that heavily focuses on melee abilities. It's a lightweight framed shotgun, so you'll move faster when it's equipped, allowing you to move around your targets a lot quicker. It doesn't have as much impact or range as other shotguns do, but it makes up for that with its weapon trait combinations. We could have Pugilist or Demolitionist to help regenerate ability energies faster, or we could throw on Slide Shot to automatically refill the magazine when sliding. We could also go for bonus strain synergy by having Hatchling in the fourth column, but I'd much rather have the combination of 1-2 punch. Sword Logic is an option, but 1-2 punch is going to give us a 100% bonus in melee damage that can be easily re-triggered over and over again. Another benefit to the Swordbreaker is that when you get a final blow with any of your melee abilities, your next weapon final blow will create a Thrall explosion, which is similar to Dragonfly, and this is because of its Cursed Thrall origin trait. The Swordbreaker can be obtained through the Crota's End raid, which is free to everyone. Up next, we have another strained weapon, the Scatter Signal, a rapid-fire fusion rifle that's available through the Season of the Wish. This has proven to be one hell of a versatile weapon, as it offers several different trait combinations that directly synergize with strained builds, but they're also going to generate bonus damage. In its third column, Slice will reduce your enemy's damage output by 40%, but you could also throw on Overflow, which could put up to at least 14 rounds in the magazine. In the fourth column, Hatchlings would be a great option to pair up with Slice, but we also have Controlled Burst, which reduces our charge time and increases our damage. Another fun option is Deconstruct, which is a little wonky right now, but it will start refilling our magazine as we damage enemies, and we'll also get the Dragon's Vengeance origin trait, which will automatically refill our magazine whenever we become critically wounded. So we've got a lot of options to keep the magazine filled, so that we can keep dealing damage. Up next, let's talk about the Supremacy Kinetic Sniper Rifle. This can be obtained through the Last Wish raid, or through the Wish tokens available through the Season of the Wish. Not accounting for the Izanagi's Burden, the Supremacy is one of the strongest kinetic snipers that we currently have, and snipers are just a great option when it comes to boss damage, at least in many raid and dungeon encounters. The Supremacy is a rapid-fire sniper, coming in at 140 RPM, and it's got an illustrious lineup of weapon traits that will greatly improve your damage potential. In the third column, we've got Lead from Gold, which I really like, especially when ammo drops can quickly become scarce. But the most appealing trait in the third column is Rewind Rounds, which is going to automatically refill the magazine whenever it's empty, based on how many hits we landed beforehand. This will synergize really well with Fourth Time's the Charm, but I think the best fourth column trait will be either Kinetic Tremors or Bait and Switch. Bait and Switch is going to give us a 30% damage bonus after hitting enemies with all 3 weapons, and this is perfect to have for damage phases. Kinetic Tremors is just nasty, since it's going to create a huge pulsating explosion on sustained damage. I find Bait and Switch to be the better option in the fourth column, but if you're not swapping through all of your weapons, then you'll find more benefit out of having Kinetic Tremors, or Vorpal. And now we're going to take a look at the Heritage Shotgun, and goddamn is this thing sexy. It's a 65 RPM pinpoint slug shotgun, and it comes from the Deepstone Crypt, but you could also get it through the Pantheon. There's a lot of strong shotguns in Destiny, and the Heritage is right up there with the best of them. It's got amazing base stats, providing this shotgun with great impact, great range, and great accuracy. It's an extremely well-balanced shotgun, and with some of these available weapon traits, you're looking at one hell of a weapon to be able to use in the Crucible or in the PvE. In the third column, we have options like Pugilist or Demolitionist, which will help regenerate our abilities faster. But I'm not as big of a fan of these options, since this also comes with the Braytech Inheritance Origin trait, which is going to regenerate those abilities as we hit enemies. We've also got Slide Shot or Auto Reloading, which are both nice options to be able to refill our magazine without ever having to reload. But the trait that I like the most in the third column is Reconstruction, because it's going to give us upwards of 14 rounds to the magazine, and that's going to equate out to be a lot of extra damage that we could inflict into a single enemy or into a big group. In the fourth column, we've got options like Focused Fury, which will give us a bonus in damage of 20%, but only after landing consecutive precision shots. We've also got the option of Recombination, and this one can be especially nasty because each elemental final blow is going to add a stacking bonus in damage, and that's 10% for each stack, and that's going to get applied to the next shot from the Heritage, providing as much as a 100% bonus in damage, which is going to rip the flesh right off your enemy's bones. The final special weapon that you'll need to obtain and craft will be the Forbearance, and we're specifically referring to the raid version, which is available through the Vow of the Disciple or the Pantheon. And no offense to the Brave version of the Forbearance, it's a formidable weapon, but the raid version is just better because of its Soul Drinker origin trait, which is going to provide you with a constant source of health regen. The Forbearance has one god roll in particular that makes this the perfect add-clear weapon, and that's the combination of Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction. This combination will see you covering the battlefield in a barrage of arc explosions, as you'll be able to stack as many as 3 rounds into the mag, with each having the ability of creating those elemental explosions. There are other options like One for All and Golden Tricorn, which could really improve the overall damage, but Chain Reaction is irreplaceable. With primary and special weapons out of the way, let's check out the best heavy weapons that you'll need to craft. The Doomed Petitioner is a relatively new linear fusion rifle, and it's an aggressive framed fusion rifle, which means it has 3-round bursts. It's available through the Season of the Wish activities, and even though linear fusion rifles aren't the reigning DPS meta, this thing can still pack a punch. Since the meta of Destiny can change as quickly as the weather, you can expect linear fusion rifles to see their time in the spotlight at least at some point in the future. And when they do, the Doomed Petitioner will be leading the way. Just like the Scatter Signal, this has the Dragon's Vengeance origin trait, so it's going to automatically reload whenever you're critically wounded. It also comes with some really interesting options between its third and fourth columns. I really like the option of Permeability, Attrition Orbs, or Destabilizing Rounds, but for the purposes of maximum damage, Reconstruction, or Envious Assassin, are going to be extremely lucrative options. And then we have Precision Instrument, Golden Tricorn, or Surrounded to give us different damage bonus options. Another trait that pops out in the fourth column is Deconstruct, and that's an interesting addition because it could give us a near endless supply of ammo. Next up is another linear fusion rifle, the Cataclysmic. This is a precision-framed solar fusion rifle that has a lot of potential when it comes to damage. It can be obtained through the Vow of the Disciple or the Pantheon, and it's a good time to get and craft this linear because it's benefiting from the season's solar artifact mods. But even after the season is gone, this will be a tremendous asset when it comes to optimal boss damage, because the Cataclysmic gives us the option of having 4th times the charm with either Focused Fury or Bait and Switch, giving us 2 different methods of pumping out a lot of extra damage, so it's definitely a weapon worth having. Moving on, we have another weapon that you should have at the ready, and that's the Commemoration, another Deepstone weapon that's also available through the Pantheon. The Commemoration was already a god tier machine gun, and that's before it became craftable. A 450 RPM machine gun with incredible range, it's remarkably accurate, it's got great recoil control, and it's just overall an impressive weapon. And then you start adding on these wild combinations, with traits like Killing Tally and Reconstruction, or 4th times the charm. There's also Rampage as an available damage perk, and even Firing Line. If we ever see machine guns getting back into the DPS meta, the Commemoration is going to be a highly sought after weapon. Up next, we're checking out another heavy machine gun, the Song of Ir-Yût, which is obtained from Crota's End. Just like the Commemoration, it's another 450 RPM adaptive frame machine gun, and it's got solid base stats. Not quite as good as the Commemoration, but it makes up for that in its variety of weapon traits. This thing hits like a truck, and when you have rewind rounds or reconstruction, refueling that magazine, you'll be shredding through enemies. In its 4th column, the Song of Ir-Yût has some incredible options that include Bait and Switch, which is a really interesting option on a heavy machine gun, but it also has Target Lock or Sword Logic, giving us multiple damage bonus options to pair up with an increased magazine. There's even Cascade Point, which is really interesting to have since this is going to increase our rate of fire. Just like the Swordbreaker, the Song of Ir-Yût will also create Dragonfly style explosions whenever you get final blows after defeating enemies with a melee. And now we move on to the final legendary weapon that you need to be sure to craft, and that is the Apex Predator, and this truly is the Apex Predator of rocket launchers. Grenade launchers have quickly become a better option in most DPS situations, but the Apex Predator continues to be one of the few standout rockets that will absolutely rip into enemies. The Apex is an extremely versatile rocket launcher, as it offers several different combinations that will allow you to reach optimal damage. You can utilize Explosive Light as long as you're able to collect orbs, and you could use Bait and Switch if you're going to be swapping through your weapons. You could also put on Bipod to increase the overall ammo capacity, which does pair up very nicely with Reconstruction, but you would be missing out on a good bit of damage. Regardless of what your playstyle is, and what your choice in 3rd and 4th column traits are, you should make sure you have Black Powder equipped. This way you can increase the blast radius. And with that, we've now wrapped up the 15 legendary weapons that you need to craft before the final shape gets here. We've covered 5 different primaries, 5 different special weapons, and 5 different heavy weapons. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about each of these, so let us know down in the comments below. Let us know which of these you already have and which you're still trying to go after. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link in the description below and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.